Hi, I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Brian.
And we are
Thriving with the Bovinos.
On today's episode,
we talk with Kathryn Bovino, certified ACT Matrix facilitator. That's right, people. We're getting into it. Just us two. Kathryn's going to share all about the ACT Matrix, how she got started, what it looks like, and how you can use it in your life today. So, Kathryn, super excited to have you on your own show today.
Excited to be here.
Tell us, how did you get involved, or what was it that you saw with ACT that made you say, I want to learn more about this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian.
Thank you. I know.
Well, it was about 2019, and I had come across ACT doing some CEUs for our BCBAs, which is Board Certified Behavior Analyst. And we have to do continuing education every 2 years. And I stumbled across ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And the thing that stood out to me was that it incorporates our feelings and our thoughts. And in traditional ABA work, historically, there has not been a focus on our private events, the things that we cannot observe in other people, which are our thoughts and feelings and what's going on internally.
Those are certainly a big part of my day.
Yeah, right?
Battling those emotions and thoughts and feelings, that's most of my day. Right?
Yes, and so that was always a struggle. Combining our RDI work, relationship development intervention, which does focus a lot on that and relational aspects, with that ABA world. And
which is just basically observable behavior.
Right.
Observing, tracking data, modifying.
Yeah. So defining the behavior, only measuring what you can observe, not saying what you thought the person might be thinking or anything like that. And so I felt like ACT was like, oh, wow. So one, we get to look at our thoughts and feelings or other people's thoughts and feelings, let them maybe explore them, take them into account into what we're doing. And then also I felt like it really married what I had been working on with RDI and my yoga and mindfulness training and certification. And it all kind of brought everything together in a way that I could describe it. So 2019, I took a 14 credit course with Dr. Stephen Hayes, who's one of the creators of ACT, and Daniel Moran, who's one of the ACT facilitators. And I just fell in love with all things about ACT.
You got involved, took a deep dive. So you got your CEUs for your BCBA, and you learned something new, which I think is important to both of us, continuing to learn and grow and provide the best service we possibly can to each individual client. So what did you learn about ACT? What is ACT, or the ACT Matrix, I should specifically say, because is it two different things, ACT and ACT Matrix? Or the Matrix is a tool used to help clarify the important concepts in ACT.
Yes, yeah. So after practicing ACT, so that's the most important thing, is practicing it with yourself, getting to know it, getting to understand it, and sharing it with others so that you have that experience and deep understanding. So then moving across the country from California to Virginia, I then was feeling stuck myself. I was using the ACT principles through that whole process, but then I came across the ACT Matrix Academy with Dr. Kevin Polk and Phil Tenaglia and took the ACT Matrix facilitator training. So then that really put into effect the tools that I could use then for myself and my clients. So you asked what was the difference between the ACT Matrix and ACT?
Yep.
So ACT is focused on the hexaflex model, which is looking at the present moment, looking at your values, taking committed action toward your values. So you're moving toward what's important to you, not getting caught up in all the stuff that comes up, not getting caught up in your labels, in your limiting beliefs. So that's self as context, not being in the content of yourself, but then also diffusing from your thoughts and diffusing from all the stuff that comes up, because we can't get rid of it. It's going to come up, the thoughts and feelings, and accepting it and then coming back to the present moment. So moving through that and understanding those 6 core processes of ACT are the important part of that process to bring you psychological flexibility. So if we are psychologically flexible, we can move through our lives, adjusting, adapting to what comes up, not being reactive, but noticing the feelings, noticing the thoughts, noticing the struggles, and continuing to move through it with resilience and coming back to what's important to us. So the ACT matrix then takes that. Dr. Kevin Polk created it with his colleagues, and he just wanted a simple tool that people could use ACT without getting too in their head about it, because there's a lot of terms, there's a lot of information out there.
We have had Kevin and Phil on our Crowdcast as well, if you're looking for more information about that. But they did mention, I think ACT was like a 1,500-page book and very overwhelming, and people were needing a resource or tool to, how do I incorporate this into my life? It's very, I get the concepts, but it's very overwhelming. And so it sounds like the ACT matrix is a simple tool you can use in daily life to help you figure things out, sort it out.
Yeah, so that's why they created it and made it simple, and they've kind of tweaked it over the years.
They were on our podcast, both of them. So you can go back and check those out as well to learn more about where they come from and their background and how they developed it. And so you got certified as an ACT matrix facilitator. Really cool.
Yes.
Been sharing it with me for a few years now. Took me a while to really understand, how do I use this? So talk to me a little bit about, what is the ACT matrix? What does it look like?
So what it looks like is you just get out a piece of paper or a whiteboard, and you draw a line down the middle, and draw a line across. You put your senses at the top. So this is how you experience the world through your 5 senses, or, you know, some people go into 8 senses, but we're going to say just our taste, touch, sight, smell, hearing, all of our 5 senses. You're experiencing the world. You're doing behaviors with your senses. As information comes in, information goes out, you do behaviors. Then at the bottom, we have our mind. So the lower 2 quadrants are our internal thoughts, our feelings, the things that people cannot observe. So our internal events, we call them in the BCBA world. So we can observe them in ourselves, but we might not be able to observe them in other people. But we can teach other people to become self-aware and to start to observe what's going on within them and how they're reacting and behaving in response to what's going on internally. So you do that, and then you look at the right side is toward action. So you could put toward on that little line. And on the left side, you have away. So those are your away actions. And so you're just going to start off in that lower right quadrant and say, who or what's important to me? So that's in line with our values. But what they say is that when you ask somebody, what are your values, that gets a little sticky.
Yeah.
A lot of shoulds come up. Well, I should think this is important, or this should be what I value. But it's really just who or what's important to you. And so most people could say something that's important to them. And if they can't, that's information too. So you put that down without judgment on yourself or whoever you're talking to. And then you're going to jump over to the lower left, and you're going to say, what's the yucky stuff that comes up? So the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that arise, we all have them, right? And that's the misconception with meditation and mindfulness, is that we can get rid of all that. We can have a clear mind all the time. And we might have moments of clarity, and we might have moments where we completely go into a bliss state in meditation, but that's not the regular experience of human life.
Stuff is always going to come up.
Yeah. And so it's learning to notice the yucky stuff without judgment, diffusing from it, not getting hooked on it and caught up in it. And then, so you put all that stuff down in the lower left. And then you look at, well, what do I do when that yucky stuff comes up for relief? And so relief isn't good or bad. It's just what we do to get away. So that's that away move from the yucky stuff. So those are the things we do to get away from the yucky stuff. And then on the upper right is our satisfaction moves. What do we do to get closer to who or what's important to us, to move toward our values? Right? That's our committed action. The actions we commit to get closer to what's important to us, our values. So you might have things that show up on both sides. So going to the gym might show up on my relief moves for stress. It might also show up on my upper right moves for getting closer to what's important to me, because health and wellness is important to me. It's just based on what's your intention there. Is your intention just to get relief in the moment, or is it to move closer to what's important to you? And then we look at stuck loops at the end. So we put ourselves in the middle and we ask ourselves, we write notice, and we say, might I have the opportunity to notice all these things coming up in my daily life? Might I notice the thoughts and feelings arising, the things that are important to me? Might I notice what I'm doing, my behaviors? in relief or satisfaction.
So in the middle, you're just noticing when these things come up, when it's happening. And I got stuck on, what do you mean just notice? I'm just noticing? Okay, then what do I do with that? And I think I struggle. Maybe I'm still trying to figure out, okay, I'm just noticing. I'm noticing when I'm frustrated. I'm noticing when I'm doing something positive I'm moving towards that's meaningful to me. Okay. What is that going to do to get away from the yucky stuff or move me more towards who or what's important to me? So what do you think is the purpose of just noticing without judgment or criticism of self or shame or whatever I might feel when I'm noticing?
So that's mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
That's being in the present moment.
Being in the present.
If you can notice, okay, that's frustration. I'm getting really frustrated. I'm starting to yell. Those are my behaviors that are coming up. Maybe then you do something that brings you back to the present moment. Maybe something that anchors you or that grounds you. You take a breath or maybe shift. Maybe that's your choice point to then say, I don't want to be yelling right now. I'm going to do something different to bring me closer to what's important to me. Maybe that's going for a walk or taking a deep breath or saying I'm sorry or whatever it is. So that's that moment of mindfulness, noticing, putting yourself in the middle, in the center. So on the ACT hexaflex, that's that present moment at the top. And so that's on kind of like a hexagon, the hexaflex. And then at the bottom is self as context. So you're really putting yourself in the context of the situation, right? And not getting hooked, not biting the hook. And getting
don't want to get hooked.
Pema Chodron has a great book called Don't Bite the Hook. And it's all about, when you bite that hook and you're not noticing and you're not self-aware and you're not in the moment and you struggle with that feeling and that response, you're like the fish on the hook. You're just getting hooked even more, getting more in that cycle, getting more in that emotion. And
thinking about it, realizing that the initial step in any strategy is noticing. Right? I have a problem. I'm not happy, or I need new goals, or I'm feeling low on energy, or I'm feeling overweight. You got to notice these things that are important to you. If I'm noticing the house is a mess, but it's not important to you, you're not going to take a next step. Right? So that actually kind of makes more sense to me now. Interesting. Got to notice.
So,
and then your intrinsic value, your intrinsic motivation, I think, shines in that, okay, I'm noticing this, and I'm noticing that it's in this cycle, it's on the left side, it's escape, it's not long-term sustainable, moving me towards that right bottom quadrant of who or what's important to me.
mm-hmm.
And if we could spend less time on the left side and more time on the right side, in my values, in my who or what's important, I think that's more of a thriving life, would you say? A more joyful?
I would, yes. Yeah, you're moving toward the things that bring you joy, the things that bring you satisfaction, contentment, whether that's family, whether that's wellness, whether that's being an honest person, being a curious person, growth, whatever you want to put in that lower right, that's a value. But so you ask that question, might I notice? And so whether you notice or not, is okay. So at the end of the day, if you say, did I do any noticing? Oh, I did not notice one thing. I just kept getting caught in these stuck loops around all these feelings and emotions. And I was here, I was there, and that's okay to notice it then. And that's kind of the process in the beginning. And that's why the ACT matrix is so great, because it gives you that physical tool to sort it out at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, when feelings come up, gives you that to start working through it. And then it really becomes just something that's kind of going through your mental process. So you ask that question, might I have the opportunity to notice all these things? And then you ask, might I have the opportunity to notice if it's working for me? If what I'm doing is working for me? And I remember we were doing a crowdcast when we first jumped into the crowdcast with the ACT matrix with me. And you said, but what was your question? It was, but how do I know if it's working? And I brought it to the mastermind group.
Yeah.
I said, I shared that with them. And you're getting caught up in that, right? Yeah. How would you know? How would you answer that question now? How would you know if it's working?
I think you would be noticing more often. So anytime I practice meditation, I'm in the moment noticing my present awareness. While I'm feeling frustrated, I have this feeling in my gut. I'm having louder verbalizations or frustrations and
That's a good way to.
I'm not yelling. I'm just
Why
having
are you
louder verbalization. I'm having body movements that suggest giving the bird to other people cutting me off in traffic. So for me, it's in that moment, I'm noticing, not afterwards noticing my behavior previously and then feeling guilty or shame about it and then getting stuck in that shame cycle and feeling bad about stuff for sometimes days, weeks, where why did I do that? I wish I should have done that. And you can't do anything about it. At that point, it's an endless cycle of guilt. So in the moment, I'm presently aware, and the more I'm aware of in the moment what's happening, how am I physically reacting, how my emotional state is, then the more it seems to show up. And it's like a button, ding, goes off a bell for me, ding, check-in. It's like a check-in. I was thinking I have like visuals, or even if you put yellow sticky note on your mirror and it says notice, or in your car, notice. And every time you look at that, you're just going to notice, and then kind of an automatic check-in, a subtle reminder. Hey, what's going on for you? How's it going? Could be good, could be bad. But I think the trick is noticing, and even when you use this with clients or you use this with yourself or a group, there's no judgment. There's no, it's just noticing. Yeah, with an objective mind. Not, why am I feeling this way? How do I escape it? How do I get rid of it? This is awful. I don't like feeling like this. And that creates panic and anxiety. But if you're just, hey, this is where it's at in this current moment.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point for sorting out things in the current moment. If you're like, why am I feeling this way? Get a piece of paper out. And I've done this. Like, what is all this? And sometimes I don't start in the lower right. I start in the lower left because I'm like, I'm feeling and I'm writing all my thoughts and feelings and getting that out. And then it's like, what am I doing to get away from this? And then what is important to me? And then what do I want to be doing instead? That can be a tool to use it. You mentioned something before that was important. I think that when you said in the moment, this is a great tool because you're bringing mindfulness to the moment and shifting how you're responding, how you're reacting, how you're moving through your moment to moment experience. And you said when you do something that is not in line with your values, then you might feel guilt and frustration over that for time that goes on. And you said there's nothing you can do about that now. And that's true, but there is also something you can do by practicing ACT or practicing mindfulness in those moments when you are carrying guilt and shame and frustration. Because we all do that. We all make a mistake, and it's having that growth mindset of seeing things, mistakes as learning opportunities and not a fixed mindset like, oh man, I did that and there's nothing we can do about it. There are things you can do about it by continuing to practice your mindfulness, continuing to come back to the present moment. And if you're using ACT, continuing to make choices in alignment with your values and now do things that are in alignment. So if I'm carrying shame and guilt about something I did, just for example, say I yelled at the kids about something, turn off the lights or, clean up the mess, whatever it is that we all.
Is that your yelling voice?
Yeah. Yeah. So and then I'm feeling bad about that. In that moment, as soon as I'm feeling that, it's like, okay, I'm going to do something in line with my values to maybe correct the situation. Maybe that could be a way, but maybe just to keep moving forward. I can notice I'm feeling this. Okay. I can have, you mentioned non-judgment. I'm not judging myself. I'm taking that away. I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling frustration. This happened. I did this as a relief move. I yelled. But what am I going to do now? I'm not going to keep getting in a stuck loop around what I did, which I've done many times. So that thought loop of like, oh, did that, and you're just like circling around it. And then maybe you're doing more and more relief moves to get away from that feeling. But no, I'm going to pause. I'm going to notice, and I'm going to say, if it's my kids I yelled at, I'm going to go and say like, hey, you know what? That's not how I want to show up, but I'm sorry I yelled at you. Next time I want to do this, or how can we work together to get toward what's important to us? It's important to clean up together, whatever it is. So I think then you can continue to bring that practice into those feelings that linger.
So this is a tool you started just with yourself and practicing and getting out your journal every night and kind of drawing the matrix and just writing it down. But you can use it with clients or groups of people. So how has that gone for you? And maybe you can share an experience where you used it and you saw, even with yourself or with another client, what did that look like? Or what kind of responses do you get from people when you use this with yourself or with clients?
Yeah, what kind of responses do I get? Well, the first thing I do is I say, hey, I work from this point of view. Can I show it to you? You know, or I work from this point of view that promotes psychological flexibility. Would you like to see it? Can we try this out? So I get consent. And then the response is usually, sure. You know, they're like, okay, what is she going to show me? And then we do the matrix and we work through it. And usually people are pretty interested. I have had some clients that just say, I don't want to do this right now. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'll share it maybe again. Hey, could we try that again? You know, at another time. But generally I get a really positive response when I introduce it to clients who have been children as young as 4 up to teens, up to adults, and parents, caregivers, staff, sharing it with them, sharing it with teams, and generally people are pretty positive. And a lot of people have light bulb moments where they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to use this. But like what you said, it took some time to kind of understand it and which I have to say, I feel like you articulate it really well and seem like you're putting it into practice and using it, and that's awesome.
It's not easy though. It's consistently over time. I think it becomes stronger like a muscle, and you work the system.
So it's a practice. And in our last episode with Ruth, she talked about a practice, mindfulness, and all of this work that we're doing. Even if whatever work you're doing, it's always a practice. You're not going to be 100% healed from your trauma. You're not going to be 100% perfectly psychologically flexible. In RDI, you're not going to have perfect dynamic intelligence, and we're all going to have this ebb and flow. So
it's a nice check-in for me. Where at today? What's going on in the chaoticness of your busy schedules, your busy lives, so frustrations? It's in this moment, okay, and it almost takes the lens and takes it back and look at the bigger picture, because we all get stuck in the little things in the day-to-day. You know, I get frustrated when the house is a mess, but pulling the scope back, looking at the big picture, is that worth getting upset? Is how, you know, I won't remember this tomorrow, so why am I not in the moment today? And so it really helps me organize, okay, a check-in, what's important to me right now? What's going on for me? And what do I want to be doing with this moment, with this time? Where can my mind or my physical actions lead me to more joy, more fulfilling connections, relationships, meaningful purpose?
Yeah, and I think that's where, well, it's been the most valuable for me as well. I think I like that idea of kind of drawing the lens back and just seeing the big picture and observing. It's that observation, just becoming that ultimate observer of yourself, your life, your thoughts, all the things, and not just going on autopilot and not just reacting in the way. And like you said, is it going to matter tomorrow? Is it going to matter in 100 years or whatever? No, but our behaviors and the way we respond to things are going to matter. And they could be hurtful and they could be impactful, but we don't have to let that limit us or bring more shame or more guilt. We can just, knowing that, noticing it, diffusing from the feelings that come up, it just helps us to be more present. But going back to the clients and I think over time, the practice of it is what impacts them the most, just as it's done with you and I.
In your training, they said you don't just do it once and you're like, okay, you have to use it, right? In practice and use it with yourself over and over, which you did for a long period of time to see the value, and then you start gaining more confidence and using it. Yeah,
and I think that's important because some people criticize, oh, well, the ACT matrix, that's just, they don't see the value as it's a working tool. So I think that's one thing. There's some criticism on that part of it, but I think that's and some people will criticize like mindfulness and mindfulness exercises and activities, air quoting, as like, oh, I can't just do that. It is a practice. It's a way of life. It's something that you don't just turn on and turn off. Okay, now I'm going to do a mindfulness activity. You can introduce it in that way as here's a tool and we're going to practice it together proactively. Try it out. Let's role play. But the goal is to then bring it into your daily life continuously and consistently as much as you can. So I think that's one of the challenges is people feel like, oh, well, let's just sit down and do this at the table, get it done, and then you get your reward or something. But that's not what it's about. And so I think that's important. That's a challenge in what, oh, and also like, why isn't this working? Let's get this. How do we make this work? And
yeah, I need a better job. I need more money. I need better health. I've been doing this matrix for a month and what's happening? So I say, I'm feeling stuck. It's a new year. Everybody's got these new goals, these new things they want to accomplish. And you could do this with yourself, but you're my ACT facilitator. You're coming to work with me. Can lead me through what this looks like. Let's go through a matrix and kind of share what this might look like.
Okay. Yeah. So if we're going to walk you through this, first you want to ask for permission, consent. So I work from this point of view that promotes psychological flexibility. Might I show it to you, Brian?
Sure. Sounds good. Let's dive in.
All right. So I got my consent. You said yes. So after you get permission, you're going to take out your whiteboard or piece of paper, your pen or marker, and you're going to draw a line down the middle and a line across. Now you can decide how much you want to explain to them or if you just want to go through it quickly. So since we've explained a lot of it, we're going to go through it quickly. So I'm going to put senses at the top. I'm going to put mind at the bottom. I'm going to put toward over here on this arrow and on this arrow.
The right arrow,
away.
moving right, you put moving toward.
So on the arrow going to the right, we're going to put toward, and on the arrow to the left, we're going to put away. Sometimes we put relief and satisfaction in there too, but I like to save that for when I'm writing out the questions. So we're going to start in the lower right, and we're going to ask, who or what's important to you?
The lower right, who or what's important to me? I would say, well, what if I don't have anything that's who or what's important to me?
Well, that's a great question. So we could just leave it blank.
Okay.
We could say nothing right now. We could, just let that be a noticing point. But if we wanted to do some values work, there's tons of information out there on how to determine your values. And there's worksheets and there's videos on it and all kinds of things to see, who or what's important to you. I might give examples to the person. I might say my family. I might say my home. I might say I like gardening. I like my dogs. What you might give them some ideas and also say no judgment. This is all personal to you. So another thing that I like to do is look at the wellness wheel and look at the 8 dimensions of wellness, which include physical wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, social wellness, all along the wheel. Check out our crowdcast on goal setting for the new year if you want to learn more about that. But I might look at each of those areas and how they're functioning in them and see, what's important to you in that area. Do you, socially, are you enjoying getting out and doing things with other people? Do you enjoy hanging out with your friends or family? So getting a bigger idea of what's important, but that can also go into goal setting. So
got it. So in the bottom right, I might say my kids are important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just going to write down anything I say without any judgment or subjectivity or, well, are you sure about that? Right? You're just writing down. I could say my pet rock and you're going to write it down. But to me, my kids, my health, my job is important to me. My mental health, learning and growing is important to me. And we've done this together and we both kind of share together and we're just writing down everything. And my money is important to me. My football team, although they're not very good right now, is frustrating but important to me. And my pets and my finding something, I think I said learning, but finding something to grow and goal setting is important to me.
Okay, cool. So, and that's what you would do. You would just write it down, no judgment, whatever they say. Cool. All right. Thank you for sharing. No, like, oh, I have a hard time. Sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, me too. Like,
or even, ooh, cool. There's some judgment there. Like, that's a good list where.
Well, and that's one thing they said in my training, like, oh, that's a good list. Like, that's a list. That's a good list. It doesn't matter what's on the list, is I guess the point.
There's a bad list? That's a bad list, right? To me. And like, oh, all right, I passed.
Yeah, so how would you remove all judgment? Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So there you go. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
So on the lower left quadrant, what's the yucky stuff that comes up? We all have uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that arise. It's totally normal. What's the yucky stuff that comes up for you?
Yucky stuff that comes up for me is a messy house. I get anxiety or frustration. Oh, when I have to repeat myself, that's frustrating for me. Yeah, yucky traffic, really annoying, frustration, worrying about bills, paying for bills, and...
Excuse me. Percy came over to comfort you with your yucky stuff.
Hey, buddy.
He says that's a lot of yucky stuff, Dad.
Yucky stuff. My back, when that hurts, back pain, other yucky stuff. That's it.
Okay.
Sure, there's some more stuff, but right now.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the tool too, is that it's always changeable. You can always add to it. So you start off with this process, and then later you might come back and be like, oh yeah, I remembered some other stuff I want to add to it.
Yeah.
All right, so we got our yucky stuff. Okay, then I might draw an arrow from my yucky stuff and then up and out to the upper left because we're moving away. What do you do to get away from the yucky stuff? What do you do to avoid or escape the yucky stuff? It's not good or bad. It's just what you do to get relief. What do you do for relief?
Yeah, maybe once a year I might raise my voice, or often.
Sorry.
That was really funny to you, huh?
I took a minute to process it, and then, wow.
To get away, I might binge watch some TV. I might have some drinks. I might, what do they call it? Rage clean the house. It's actually very soothing though, but clean. I might, focus on getting extra work in and overworking. Sometimes if there's a project, I might push my physical body to where I'm hurting for days after just to get that project done. Not listening to my body. Sometimes I go to the gym, so it's not all perceived negative things. To get away from the yucky stuff, I might fill the void with shopping or drinking coffee or trying to find some external thing that temporarily makes me feel better. And I might withdraw, not push down.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our upper left.
Okay.
What we do to get relief, to get away, escape, avoid the yucky stuff. So what do you do? So in the upper right quadrant, we would put, what do you do for satisfaction? And at one point they changed it to, contentment. But it's really just, what do you do to get closer? I might draw an arrow from the upper right down to the lower right and say, what do you do to get closer to the who and what's important to you?
My health is important, so I may exercise. I may take an ice bath, or now that we have a sauna, use a sauna, or do yoga or meditation or something like that. To learn or grow is important to me, so listen to podcast or watch a documentary or read a book or seek out a class or something, a new learning opportunity, money, or, and we could break this down. Why is money important? So freedom, flexibility, time is important to me, really, not money. And so working a little extra so I can have more time off on the holidays and I'm not distracted by that. I may try to eat healthier. I may not drink alcohol to try something new. And I might go to church or pray. I might spend time with my kids or my wife and be present and put my phone down and focus on positive interaction. Or I might get my kids ice cream every time they ask, or take them somewhere cool, or buy my... Mango just walked in with her new teddy bear Christmas present.
She's so cute.
She just brought this to me. There you go. You can have that.
That face.
Yeah,
Okay.
so those are some things that I might do to
All right.
move me to who or what's important to me.
All right. And so you put yourself in the middle. We're going to draw a circle in the middle of that cross.
We got
that
another
did.
one, like sending thank you cards, or like helping somebody, or doing community service or something like that. That really makes me feel important to me.
Okay.
Helping other people, so I think is really a big value for me.
Okay. So we're going to put you in the middle.
Okay.
I'm going to write notice.
Put me in the middle?
Put yourself in the middle. Yes. That's you in the middle of all
What
this.
does that mean? Put yourself.
So you have your line down and line across.
Okay.
You're going to draw a circle.
Okay.
And then we're going to put you in the middle and say notice. You're going to write notice. Might you have the opportunity to notice?
I'm not going to put me physically in the middle. You're right. You're going to make a circle and write notice. Sorry, I'm getting stuck on that. How are you putting me? Because if I were listening, I'd be like, what does that mean? How am I putting myself in the middle? You're going to draw a circle and write notice.
Good point.
I think you're physically going to move me into the middle of your chart.
Actually, that is a great idea. If we did it like on the driveway or on a sidewalk and wrote it and then put the person in the middle.
This is you in your
stuff. Try that out.
There you go. Matrix 2.0.
Yes. So you're going to imagine that you're there in the middle.
Yep.
That's your observer self, right?
Yep.
Notice. You're going to write notice. And I'm going to ask you, might you have the opportunity as you go through your day, as you go through your week, to notice these things coming up? Might you notice what's important to you and the yucky stuff, and notice what you're doing for relief, and notice what you're doing for satisfaction?
There might be opportunity. Whether I take advantage of that opportunity,
right?
I'm not sure.
So that's why we say, might you have the opportunity, not will you.
You better
will you do it
5 times today.
Will you do it? Yeah, it's might you have the opportunity. Well, I will have the opportunity. So most people say yes.
Yes.
Whether you notice or not,
okay.
That's a part of noticing. You can notice that you didn't notice, and that's self-awareness. That's reflection. It's a part of the process. Then you ask, might you have the opportunity to notice if what you're doing is working for you?
I think there will be opportunity. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then might you also notice how much time you're spending on the left side of the matrix and how much time you're spending on the right?
Yeah, I like that one. And even the stuck loops. Where I'm feeling frustrated with traffic and work, and then I go home and have some drinks, and then I wake up and I feel tired and even more on edge and more frustrated with work and need more relief, and get stuck in that side on the left side, and I'm not spending time on my values and what's important to me and doing things that really make me feel good and make me feel joy and create a thriving lifestyle. So, yeah.
So that noticing brings mindfulness. Using this tool helps promote psychological flexibility and that awareness, because then you're putting it down on paper, you're working it out, or just do it in your mind. And then hopefully it becomes that practice. But you can also set some goals around it. The matrix isn't designed in that way, but if you want to then, you mentioned joy, if you want to choose more joy and you're like, well, now what do? I'm noticing I keep getting stuck, and then you could make a plan. And this is just my own personal practice, and what I like to share with clients is then create a plan around that. Okay, what's one little thing I could do today to get closer to who or what's important to me? One little thing, one momentary thing. Don't make these big grandiose goals and plans. And if you want to, that's fine. But just one little step, like one little habit that you could implement today, and maybe then you do it again tomorrow, and then you do it again tomorrow. So that's one thing you could do. Also looking at that wheel of wellness and finding what you want more of, what's going to bring you more satisfaction to balance out that well-being, the wheel of wellness, all those 8 aspects that bring us that sense of well-being. There's also a joy list of like making a list of things. And Amalia, in one of our past podcasts, mentioned this, a list of joys. I don't know if she mentioned it on there, if it was the presentation, the talk that she did, but just making a list of all the things that might bring you joy that you could try out, that you could do more of in your life.
You might not know. And we had another podcast of
yes.
Jenny said, you might not know, but try it. Try something new. Try something different. Go out of your comfort zone, and you may like it, you may not. But how do you know unless you try it out?
Mm-hmm. And she had mentioned, hosting a tryout for yourself. So going to try out that class at the community center, or going to a new gym trial, or watching a yoga class on YouTube. But also the things that you do to get closer to the who and what is important to you can be very simple. It could be bringing a cup of coffee to your loved one. It could be hugging them. It could be sitting down and talking for a minute.
Or not talking.
Sorry. So that if I came home and did not talk, would that would bring more joy to
No.
But
don't be ridiculous.
That would bring more joy to you. So maybe that would bring me.
I mean, that would be weird. That wouldn't be.
That wouldn't be authentic to me.
Then I'd be like, "Oh, I'm in trouble. What's happening? What did I do now?" But having some awareness as to the balance in the moment where the person's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I think that's where the noticing comes in. Again, without judgment, without getting hooked on analyzing it, but you can notice your own behaviors and reactions and responses and the why behind it. Am I doing this to get relief, to get away from the yucky stuff? If you're doing something for someone else to get relief from what you think, like you're saying, oh, I'm in trouble and now maybe I'm going to do something, but you'd never be in trouble. But if you're doing something to get relief from the response you think someone else is going to have, is that really moving you into more satisfaction, alignment, and joy with what's important to you? So really looking at those intentions. And I think that's where that reflection at night, sitting down and doing it at the end of the day, is really helpful. Starting your day off, looking at what you have ahead of you and what might bring up yucky feelings. I've done that before, where it's like, oh, I got like a lot of stuff happening today and a lot of people I'm going to be interacting with that might bring up some stuff, and then sorting it out before it even happens can help you to then make choices on how you respond in the moment a little bit better, right?
Absolutely. And you could do this on paper or not. In driving in the car, you could just do a quick check-in. Let me go through the matrix, or maybe before you go into work or on your break or before a big speech, just a quick check-in, sort it out. You know what? Being myself, sharing my authentic self is important to me. I'm going to live in that value today. So just noticing that.
I think the important thing is ACT, and the ACT matrix is really about developing that psychological flexibility, being able to be in the present moment and to move toward what's important to you. We can add on goal setting, and we can add on things we want to do more of as just a bonus. We can do that with ourselves and with our clients or anybody that you work with, or even as a team or as a family. And so I think it's a great tool for that. But really, it's all about just...
Yeah, and our kids love it.
Mm-hmm.
Go through it with them. You've done it. They really respond well to it and love it.
Yes,
love doing it with you.
Yeah. So I would invite our listeners, for all of you out there, and for us, I'm always challenging myself to keep continually working at this and practicing it. But I would invite you to take on that challenge of trying it out. Try out the Matrix. Join us for a crowdcast if you want more information, or you want to see it visually, or if you want a little bit more structured learning opportunity. But try it out. See what you notice. See what you don't notice. And see if you can bring more joy and resilience through developing that psychological flexibility in your life.
Yeah, and give us some feedback. Let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy what you're seeing, please like and subscribe. Write an honest review. We love that. Love that. Help us grow and reach more people. I think if you're looking for more information on the ACT Matrix, you can check out the ACT Matrix Academy. Learn some great stuff there on that website. And check us out on YouTube. We have the video on there, as well as our podcast where you can find us. And thriveconsultationandtherapy.com is our website. More about us. And there's our contact information there. And happy holidays. We look forward to seeing you in the new year. They can't see your wave.
Bye.
Bye.